to click on Richard's name. There
Okay,
you
it's
go.
recording.
Yeah. Okay.
We ready to
Okay.
go? I'll leave it going.
It's 7:05.
Who do we have in here so far? It looks like we
We
have
have-
14 people.
Yeah, and we have a quorum.
Great,
So-
it's being recorded.
All right. Thank you, Richard.
You're welcome.
I apologize. I don't know what happened to my Zoom
Okay,
meeting.
it's
whatever.
all right.
Okay,
This is a special meeting of the Cornwall Planning and Zoning Commission. I am Anna Tamel, the chair. We do have a quorum tonight. We have Phil West, James Laporta, and Bruce Bennett, who is an alternate sitting in for Stephen Sicardi. And so the meeting has been called to order at 7:06 p.m. I want to welcome everybody. It's a small group, but we're mighty and powerful. This is the third annual town planning meeting to review the goals that were set in our 10-year plan of conservation and development. Many of you were involved in that, so I don't need to remind you, but I will anyway, that plan was developed over the course of 3 years of public meetings, subcommittees involving citizen volunteers, a townwide survey, and a final public hearing. One of the remarkable things about all the towns in the Northwest corner is the high level of volunteerism. When I counted the boards, committees, associations, and commissions in the last town plan, I found that there were over 20 listed. So in Cornwall, it is the citizenry who shaped the town. If you look back at our history, which I'm always interested in, this feature may largely be due to the Puritans who first came here in 1633, and who in the process of organizing themselves and selling off the lands they received from the English king, decided early on to embrace the concept that Joanne Wojtaszek was so fond of mentioning, local control. So we've been exerting local control for a very long time. The first zoning commission came into being by town ordinance in 1946. It was soon followed in 1954 by an ordinance to create a planning commission. And before that, an informal grassroots planning council led by Elmer Griggs, Richard's forefather, was established in 1951. Park and Rec came along in 1967. The Inland Waters and Wetlands Commission, the Conservation Commission, and the Cornwall Child Center were all created in the early 70s. So that's a bit of historical perspective. The Planning and Zoning Commission has spent the entire past year working on a rewrite of the zoning regulations, aimed at making them more easily read and more understandable. We have reorganized, replaced outdated language, and updated the regulations to make them current with state regulations. No new amendments were promulgated, which means we did not contribute to any specific goals from the town plan. However, our next project will center on using zoning regulations to promote or allow more inexpensive housing. In my personal opinion, the need for more affordable housing is the single most pressing problem facing Cornwall. So now I'm just going to take a few minutes to review for everyone what the goals were, and then we will proceed with, if I can find it. Here we are. Click on it. So this was prepared by our land use consultant. It's simply a summary of the goals themselves. And there were 4 subcommittees: economic development, housing, natural resources, community culture, and youth resources. Under economic development, increase opportunities to allow for new businesses. And we actually have had some new businesses come to town since the plan was developed. Make it easier to work for residents to work from home. And we did, in fact, pass a new home business regulation. Support Cornwall's existing businesses. I think Simon's going to tell us about that. Improve high-speed internet and cell signal coverage. We've already heard about Optimum's plans. Promote our natural resources to attract visitors and create new business opportunities. I think we're going to be hearing from the Conservation Commission and the CCT. Develop and promote our arts and culture resources to attract visitors and residents and support Cornwall's many artists. Support our agricultural and farm-based businesses, support transportation-related businesses, and participate in regional economic efforts. So that's all the economics. House is misbehaving. Here we go. Housing, fewer goals to read out. Increase the number of affordable housing units by at least 25 over the next 10 years. Increase the number of attainable rental housing units. Consider zoning and permitting changes which would make building homes more affordable. Increase first-time homebuyer options. Make the housing stock more energy efficient and accessible. We're going to be hearing from Ginny Block about the CHC's progress during the last year. And then under natural resources, we want to protect forests, farmlands, wetlands, and wildlife corridors. CCT has been doing a lot of work in that regard. Conserve and protect Cornwall's drinking water and recreational water bodies, including wetlands with related buffers, streams, and the Housatonic River watershed. We really should have had the Cream Hill Lake Task Force present too tonight, Karen. Maybe next year. Monitor and protect air quality, protect Cornwall's horizon lines and ridge lines. The Conservation Commission has been working on that. Address the proliferation of invasive species. The Garden Club has been working on that. We should invite them next year. Limit noise and light pollution. Promote sustainability efforts, including sustainable CT participation and implementing further energy conservation measures. We shall soon hear from Katie about that. Obtain scenic designations for Cornwall state roads. All right, we're almost at the end. Just a few modest goals, right? Attract and retain young people and families. Meet the needs of Cornwall's older residents, including transportation, healthcare, and social recreational opportunities. I can't see all the attendees. Is anyone from Park and Rec with us, Karen? No. Okay. Enhance communication and collaboration between existing town groups. Well, in that regard, I could say on behalf of both the CCT sponsored a panel that included the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Conservation Commission. So that was a very good example of collaboration. Support Cornwall's outstanding volunteer fire department, retain and attract EMS fire volunteers through support and incentives, and I might add, housing that they can afford. Enhance recreational opportunities for young adults, encourage more social service businesses and organizations to locate in Cornwall Plains. So now we're going to find out what you have been working on. And, whoops, sorry about that, you guys. And we are going to now start with Gordon Ridgway, and I have a little bit of an introduction that might just embarrass him a tad. I don't care. Gordon Ridgway is our first selectman. He has lived in this town for most, if not all, of his life. He became an alternate on the Planning and Zoning Commission in 1983. So that's 40 years ago. And he has been working on the town's behalf since that time. So, Gordon, carry on.
Thank you, Ann. Seems like only yesterday, but I did not get my office from the King of England. It wasn't that long ago. So anyway, but what's interesting, it does give me a long-term perspective. And one of the things, some of the issues we're working on today are relatively modern concerns, and some of them were concerns then and are still concerns today. Just going through our little to-do list of things which coincide generally with our goals. Our board has its goals for the 2 years, and a lot of them are the same as these goals. And we have seen some progress on the major initiatives facing addressing things in the town. We've been promised, we've seen signs, more than we probably thought 3 or 4 years ago, that broadband would be a reality, that we've, again, have good reason to believe that 2023 will actually see some fiber being strung in Cornwall. Connectivity continues to be a issue, not just for emergencies or people's convenience, but I did hear again from Mohawk Mountain Ski Area, and they were having intermittent internet coverage last weekend. And you can imagine trying to do all these business transactions or renting things without a decent internet connection. So again, that it plays itself out in ways that we can't always anticipate, but we do see some signs of real progress there. And thanks to Casey Cook, who is the town's representative and liaison with Optimum on their business there. We, of course, did have a major political event over the summer with the overwhelming support given to the wastewater management proposal for West Cornwall, which we are pursuing. And we are filing necessary paperwork to get federal funding, and that will result in a environmental review by the federal government. And we are also looking at investigating the site. The site to beat at this point is the location, the back of the parking lot, in between Three Guys ski shop and the post office. So we have taken some steps to make that come closer. We also will be working on an initiative that might help the redevelopment of the Burkhart property in Cornwall Bridge. We have looked at, and we will be pursuing some infrastructure grant money that will help us with making our village centers more pedestrian and bicycle friendly, through a grant to maybe getting crosswalks and improved parking, those things, which again have been something people have talked about for a long time. And I think we may be able to line up some funding to make those things happen. Let's see, one thing that is interesting is that for one of the first times, last couple of weeks, we've seen our grand list actually report come in. We had actually negative grand list growth, and we'll get into housing in a minute. But because so much land was bought by the state of Connecticut, it actually deflated our grand list by about $1 million net loss. So again, we're seeing increased bills to pay for our schools and our roads and our emergency services, insurances and things, but there is a limit to how much we can do unless we make our grand list grow. We have not seen significant housing in town this last year. Again, Cornwall's a very popular place, but it doesn't necessarily translate into increased housing and increased diversity of housing. In fact, we have seen a remarkable increase due to popularity of our housing stock. I think I noted last year that we've seen a absence of rental housing occur since the pandemic. This year, we actually saw an absence of any kind of housing because we found that the median house price of house sales in Cornwall last year, 2022, actually went up 55%. Pre-pandemic, it was about 300 and something $1,000. After last year's increase from 500,000, now it's up to about 800,000, and that's for the median house price in Cornwall. Jocelyn told me the average house price comes out at 1.2 million. And I remember thinking not too long ago, the average house price in California was inching towards $1 million, and what the implications for the state would be. I would also ask people tonight to think of what the implications for this town are going to be, as we already are at $800,000. We have seen the population of the school, although it increased during the pandemic. This year, it actually declined by about 20 students, or about 20%. So there's very little opportunity for people to move into town with those huge high prices if there's, in the same time, the price is going up and there's no increase in supply. So I would say, despite our success in numerous other tasks, the selectmen are taking this very seriously, as we have for years. We have turned the Housing Plan Implementation Committee, which meets monthly, into a housing task force, thinking that this is a complicated issue that will not be solved quickly. But that group meets every month to try to see what we can do to push things forward. We have had some successes. We have appointed a housing coordinator, Jessica Brackman, who's given assistance to the Housing Corporation and to the selectmen on doing research as far as what other municipalities where they've had success nearby, what are some of the successful strategies, as well as maintaining a list of people that would like to live in Cornwall or maybe have housing opportunities for people. So again, trying to work people through the increasingly difficult process of living here. So she's on board. The town also did vote to send about a quarter of our ARPA funds to the Housing Corporation to help them start their land acquisition and development fund. They do have some lots that have not been able to be developed. So hopefully that will help. And the Housing Corporation, as Ginny will tell you, is about to start a housing fund. So that's a good thing. But I would again say that one of the primary goals was to get 25 units built in 10 years. At this present time, despite everybody's efforts, there's not even anything in the pipeline. So we are 0 for 25 affordable units. The state, on the other hand, just bought another 500 plus acres of Cornwall land. So they are up 500 acres. We are, as one of our strategies, we are going to be approaching the state with our help of Maria Horn, our representative, to see if there isn't a little piece somewhere in the vast thousands of acres the state owns that could be used for affordable housing. And that, again, is going to be a long process, but we feel we will hopefully get a dialogue there that the current trend shouldn't go on, as far as so much land being protected from housing, basically. And again, we are continuing to work on this. There's a couple strategies to put in place, but I think again, that $800,000 figure, things are changing very rapidly. I think we used to think of this as a land of steady habits. We used to have projections that would slowly move. Now we're seeing an economy, a lifestyle, demographics change fairly quickly. So we have to be somewhat nimble in that response. So I think I will leave you with that. But again, we have some initiatives there I think that could be very positive, but the housing thing seems to be the one that is really proving the hardest. I mean, it's not easy to build the wastewater management system in West Cornwall, but that is relatively easy apparently compared to picking on any units of affordable housing. Go figure. So anyway, that's where we're at. Total agreement with the chair on that issue.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Gordon. I want to mention that the situation with West Cornwall Septic was a matter of concern to the Planning and Zoning Commission, apparently for many decades. And it was part of many town plans. So it just goes to show that sometimes improvements take a while. I'm going to next ask Ginny Block and Maggie Cooley to talk about the work of the Cornwall Housing Corporation.
Thanks, Anna. Well, I'm not quite as good as Gordon at just rattling everything off, so I've got a lot of stuff written down. And, you know, I think as everyone who's on the Zoom knows, yes, housing is still a critical need in Cornwall. There are currently 39 people on the waiting list in Cougarman Village, and we also get inquiries sometimes on the website. We've had 5 just in January. And just to sort of reinforce what Gordon was saying, not only about the cost of housing, but what people can afford. I did some research about salaries for teachers in Region 1. And from what I can find, a beginning teacher who has a master's degree for the first year would earn someplace around $52,000, $53,000 a year. When we look at affordable housing, we look at up to 80% of the area median income. In Litchfield County, for one person, 80% of the area median income would be a little over $63,000. So that means that even for a teacher in this area, they're not earning enough to qualify probably for a loan to build a house. So I'm just going to move on to what some of the tasks were where Cornwall Housing Corporation is listed as a responsible lead in the Plan of Conservation and Development. The first one was that to encourage private giving of land and funding to Cornwall Housing Corporation to allow them to build more housing, to work with Cornwall Conservation Trust to see if the future donors could be asked to consider a portion of preserved property being provided to CHC to be used for housing. And we have approached the Conservation Trust to encourage them to ask donors to preserve a portion of donated land. And in the forum that Anna mentioned in November, Bart Jones, the president of CCT, reported that he is asking donors to consider such a donation. But so far, none of them have expressed a willingness to do that. So that is something that I think is worth pursuing. Another goal in the plan was to support first-time home buyers and those seeking housing opportunities. And what the goal mentioned is to increase awareness of the Housing Development Fund, down payment assistance, and free first-time homebuyer education classes and online resources. So what I've learned since that was written, and I was part of the group that helped to write that, is that the Housing Development Fund probably gives help for people who are buying a house that's already constructed. So for people who are looking for the parcel program, that's not necessarily a source. But we do refer applicants to the parcel program to a financial fitness program that's provided virtually online. And applicants have to show a certificate that they have completed that. And there are actually several resources that we can provide for that kind of education. The thing is that with the current cost of building and the difficulty obtaining construction loans, we're in the process of changing the parcel program model, because it's even harder to get a construction loan than it is just to get a loan for a house that's already built. So now what we're moving toward is seeking state grants along with private donations to be able to build on our remaining lots and have the gap between the sale price and the construction price be covered by grants and donations. And as Gordon mentioned, we are starting an acquisition fund so that we can have funds that would match anything that the state might be willing to grant. And that's a model that's been used successfully both in Litchfield and in Washington. So what else? So we provide support for others seeking rental housing through our website for rental units in both Krugerman and Bonnybrook. We've had a couple of new inquiries for the parcel program, but as I mentioned, the current applicants aren't able to get mortgage for building. So we do think that by shifting to working on some state grants and having an acquisition fund, that we would be more successful with that model. We're sending a fundraising letter out by the end of February. We're going to add a donate button, a QR code. So we're just trying to expand how people can donate. And last but not least, of course, we're totally supportive of P&Z's efforts to allow multifamily housing as we continue to search for land to purchase. And I think that in the future, we're going to be looking at land for multifamily units for rentals, because that has clearly been the need for many years.
Thank you, Ginny. I think those plans are ambitious and perfect. Maggie, did you have anything to add? Probably not.
Nope.
You don't. Okay.
Ginny's in charge. She's doing great.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Well, I'm glad that Simon, he was here. Are you still here? There you are, Simon.
Hard to miss.
Yeah. So Chair of the Economic Development Commission, it's your turn to let us know how the commission has contributed to the town plan's goals over the past year.
Okay, hang on, see if I can share my screen.
Oh, you have to have, does he not have to have permission, Karen?
Yeah.
Can you give Simon permission to share his screen?
I think you are in charge, Anna.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Hang on. I know how to do it.
If we can't use the slides, don't worry.
I'm worried. I'm getting there. And make host, allow to record. No. I will make you a co-host and then you can share your screen. That's what I did.
Okay,
Okay.
see if that worked. Working out.
There should, if you're allowed to share your screen, there should be a green writing and a green button at the bottom.
And now I just got to find what this damn thing is. 1 minute.
Oh, I see. Well, I shall just natter on then while we're waiting.
Okay, keep chatting for 2 seconds.
Yeah, well, I'll mention in further to affordable housing that the Planning and Zoning Commission does have a subcommittee on housing. The members are Phil West, James Laporta, and Will Evans. And they've had one meeting and established some recommendations for ways to make accessory apartments more easy to be permitted. They're going to be having another meeting soon with our land use consultant to discuss multifamily housing. And I'm hoping that they will be bringing a draft regulation to the commission within the next few months so that we can fulfill our job of taking away legislative barriers to creation of more attainable housing.
Anna, can you say again who's on that subcommittee? You said Phil West, James Laporta.
James Laporta, Phil West. Do you know how to
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Will Evans.
Well, Evans. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, back to Simon.
Okay, did that come up? Are you seeing my slides?
Yes, we are.
Excellent. And the trouble is, I seem to be stuck on one slide. Hang on.
There you go.
Okay,
Well, this is fancy, Simon.
I think we just got lucky. Gosh. Well, first of all, good evening. I'm sorry I'm late for some extraordinary stupid reason. I thought it began at 7:30. So I thought I'd get on early, and to my horror, I saw you were all chatting with the recorder on, so I realized I was actually late. My name is Simon Hewitt, for those of you I don't know. I'm chair of the EDC. I'm a full-time resident in Cornwall, had a house here for 20 years. I was formerly president of the library. I'm currently serving on the board of finance, and my background is in banking. Also on this call, obviously, is Bianca, who's vice chair of the EDC and a very capable one, and Janet Carlson, who was really the impetus behind the EDC over the past few years, and who is obviously now a board of selectmen rep. I press that. No. Okay, so we have 9 active members at the moment. I've obviously introduced myself, Bianca, you know. Gary Steinkohl is our treasurer. He's very active in Cornwall. He's got a background as a controller. Mayor Rubin has a background in marketing. Oscar Anderson has a background in fixed income. Richard Bramley is someone we all drink to. Arnold Fisher is currently taking a leave of absence at the moment as he's in Morocco. Jane Herold, obviously, is one of our potters. Duncan is a consultant, and Janet we've talked about. I think most importantly, we have one honorary member, Neil Frowenglass, who just does an astonishing amount of work for us on the marketing front. He works for the city of Philadelphia, and his skills in that's tremendous, and he actually put this, this slide together. I think in thinking about the EDC, it's really a group of Cornwall residents with different skills who combine their talents to make things happen for the benefit of Cornwall. And I think that really sort of sums up what we try to do. More specifically, our mission is to create, develop, and maintain a healthy and viable business climate. And we spent a lot of time focused on that. Locale and heritage in Cornwall. And that really goes to the attractions of Cornwall to both visitors, residents, as a place to come to and hopefully stay, to promote tolerance and acceptance of economic diversity, and the right need to work in Cornwall. I think as I listened to the previous presentation on the need for housing, I think that was, you know, that ties into exactly what that is. We are a town commission with members approved and appointed by the town, and our budget is entirely provided by the town. So what are the key actions that we take? First of all, we market Cornwall as a great place to live, work, and visit, but really with a focus on celebrating Cornwall, both with long-term residents and business owners and also visitors. Our second task is to create and promote town-wide events to drive increased traffic to existing businesses. And for example, we've reinvigorated Cornwall Day, which is quite successful. And we've got the 12 Days of Christmas and other events are planned. We liaise with the selectmen to make recommendations, and Gordon is terrific at attending our meetings, which are held monthly. And then we liaise with Cornwall commercial property owners to help attract new businesses. We've set up a program where businesses come and talk to the EDC at our monthly meetings just to talk about what they have learned about operating in Cornwall and what they can share with others. As you know, we held a Cornwall Business Day last Thursday and had, I think, about 20 local businesses really networking. They had a chance to hear about the EDC and also to hear from Gordon. In terms of our specific goals for last year, And these were aligned with the plan. The first one was continued support the Buy Local, Hire Local campaign. And again, Janet did an extremely strong job in the past getting the local and the union going on this, and it's an initiative we're proud to support. The second one was to develop free Wi-Fi in Cornwall Village. As you know, Wi-Fi is fairly spotty in Cornwall, and we saw a strong need for that at the Cornwall Village Green, which hosts the market. Maintain and develop marquee annual events, again, Cornwall Day, the 12 Days of Christmas, etc. Support the Board of Selectmen, attracting new businesses and residents. And finally, to represent Cornwall at regional and state meetings. So those were our objectives. Now let's have a look at how we did. First of all, our website, Explore Cornwall CT. I hope you've all had a chance to look at that. It really does lay out just how much there is to do in Cornwall and just what an active calendar of events we do have in Cornwall. It's obviously aligned with the town website and there's a fair degree of overlap, but it is specifically targeted at visitors and is intended to provide reasons to visit Cornwall. Now on the right, you can see this rather strange picture of Frank. He's obviously one of the new businesses that have opened this year, and congratulations to him for just being voted the best new restaurant in Litchfield County, which is terrific. And then on the right, our new candle store, the Plaid Rooster company down in Cornwall Bridge. So we are seeing, return of activity, and obviously, hopefully we're going to see a market and other stores down there shortly. With respect to the connectivity, connectivity is absolutely critical these days, and Cornwall, has long been something of a black hole in this area. I've always joked that, people come to Cornwall and say, gosh, I got to call my wife and tell her how lovely Cornwall is, realize they can't do it and keep driving. So getting improved connectivity I think is absolutely critical. We were able to install Wi-Fi on the village green this year, which I think has helped with the market there. We did West Cornwall last year. Frankly, it needs extending down there, but there is Wi-Fi around the local and the union, for example, and near Bianca's. And we are looking at ways as to how to expand free Wi-Fi down in Cornwall Bridge. Obviously that's a more complicated and probably a more expensive operation, but it's something that we are looking at. Marquee annual events. Cornwall Day used to be quite a popular event. It fell into abeyance, frankly, with the drive of Mayor Rubin behind it. We have reinvigorated it this year, and I think it's really been quite a success. I think the 12 Days of Christmas is becoming a tradition in West Cornwall now. It's a wonderful showcase for our artists. And frankly, it makes West Cornwall, which is almost a postcard village, particularly in the winter snow, that much more attractive. So we're very pleased with that. And we're continuing to look at this area. Supporting the Board of Selectmen in attracting businesses. A lot of this really is online material. Neil is, again, our expert in social media, and he's been getting a very strong following for his stuff that's out there. And I should say he's always looking for additional input. If you think over the past year, and some of these we were involved with, some not so much, we've actually been featured in Rural Intelligence, obviously, in World Atlas, in Art News, and the New York Times. So this really has been quite successful. I think that's something which is going to continue to grow. And then finally is participating at regional tourism meetings. Cornwall hadn't been doing this recently. Mayor Rubin, again, is now our representative on the Western Connecticut Tourist Board, so she sees what's going on, and I think that gives us a broader platform, but also gives us insights into what other people are doing. But I think as we look back over what we have done over the past year, we've actually achieved a lot of what we set out to do. You know, the EDC is a group of volunteers. We meet for an hour or so every month. We've got a budget of, as you know, from the town budget of $6,500. But I do think we spend it wisely, and I do think that we make a difference. And hopefully from the slides I've just put up, you will agree. And with that, I'd be delighted to take any questions. All congratulations for getting this.
Well, thank you, Simon. I don't think we'll have any questions just yet, but I will say that that was fascinating and most impressive. So thank you to all the members of the EDC.
Thank you. Janet, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I want to commend Simon. You know, I chaired EDC for 8 years. He's done an amazing job. I know that I wouldn't say the words intimidated, because that's ridiculous. But you know, I greatly appreciate how much work Simon and the group has done. Neil, you know, has obviously been a rock star. The local has given back, I think at last tally, it was $145,000 back to the community. So, and in the union, you're looking at, you know, I think there's 4 or 5 nights a week where the union's fully booked. So there is all kinds of classes going on. There's artistic community, wellness community, you know, with yoga and, you know, multiple yoga classes, multiple fitness classes, all kinds of things are happening there. So it's, you know, spawned into a much bigger thing. So, you know, my thanks to Simon for taking the reins and running with it. Neil and the rest of the crew for all the work they do.
Thank you,
Thank
Janet.
you,
You're
Janet.
too kind.
The next person on our list is Bart Jones, and I think that Katie is going to be very relieved to discover that I was able to get his video. Now, we need Simon to get that screen off that he was sharing.
Yeah, I know. You're pushing my talents. Tell you what, I would just shut down. I'll read.
Oh, wait.
Okay, it's worked.
Okay,
Not quite sure.
very good. Now, here comes Bart.
That's good. Technology is overrated.
Looking very serious. And he took me seriously at my request to keep his presentation brief. It's 4 minutes long, as he will tell you himself.
I'm Bart Jones.
Can you all hear him?
President of the Cornwall Conservation Trust. First, I want to thank Anna Timel and the Planning and Zoning Commission for hosting this meeting. It's so important to periodically address the town plan of conservation and development, which very often, once it's completed, gets put on a shelf somewhere and never thought about again. So I really appreciate the fact that they're taking the lead and keeping this plan fresh in the minds of folks in Cornwall. I'm recording this video for the meeting because I'm on a remote island in the Bahamas fishing. The only town on the island is called Hard Bargain. You think Cornwall has issues about development and conservation. I'd like to highlight 5 points in the Cornwall Conservation Trust's new strategic plan. First, we want to continue to protect land with high environmental and scenic value in Cornwall. The only project we have at the moment is to protect 34 acres of land on ridgeline Quarry Hill above the town that will connect to Cathedral Pines. It will make a wonderful 75-acre preserve. The next thing we want to do is be sure that we're managing our properties to improve biodiversity, resilience to climate change, and accessibility for the enjoyment of the public for hiking. Terry Burke on our board will lead that effort. The next priority is to be sure we're educating the Cornwall public about the value of conservation and the importance of the environment and doing what we can to save it. Katie Freigang, head of our outreach committee, has a lot of programs planned for 2023 to help in that effort. The next thing we want to be sure to do is to collaborate with other organizations and particularly town committees such as the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Cornwall Conservation Commission to make sure that we are working together to steer Cornwall towards a better future. One example of that is the annual meeting that we had last year on affordable housing and conservation. That was a very good session, and I think it helped bring us together towards a common goal. The other thing we've done is to create an interactive map that will show both high priority conservation properties and properties that are suitable for development. The next thing we need to do in our plan is to figure out a way to make sure that we sustain Cornwall Conservation Trust financially going into the future. We have protected over 2,000 acres of land, and that's an important value that needs to be sustained for the next 30 or 40 years at least. And finally, we are going to refine our governance structure and be sure that it meets the needs of the Conservation Trust, including finding additional board members. We were very lucky to have 4 new board members this year: Oscar Anderson, Andrea Geiser, Aaron Landman, and Fiona O'Kane. In the future, we'll need new board members as we go forward. So thank you again, Anna, for hosting this meeting. Any questions about the Cornwall Conservation Trust can be answered by Katie Freigang, who is participating live in this meeting. And I look forward to seeing you on one of our trails in the future when I get back from this remote island. Thank you.
I thought
Bob Jones, president of the Cornwall
Oh,
Conservation
sorry.
Trust.
Let's
First, I
stop
want to
that.
thank-
It was very mean of him to tell us where he was, don't you think? Okay, Cornwall Conservation Commission, Deb Bennett, you signed on, there you are. Tell us about what you
did.
guys have been doing.
Good evening, Anna and everybody else. After Simon's presentation, I'm just going to be reading something, but I can promise you it'll be under 5 minutes. So there's a plus to that. And here it goes. The Cornwall Conservation Commission met monthly throughout 21 and 22, working to achieve the objectives outlined in the POCD. And I'm going to be reading this with those objectives in mind. And number 1 and 2 is protecting our forests and addressing the proliferation of invasive species. The Conservation Commission's continuing efforts on the Japanese knotweed eradication program have shown successful results in many places around town. This spring, CCC, in association with the Cornwall Garden Club, held a hands-on workshop to educate the public on the impact of Berberis thunbergii, or Japanese barberry, protecting our forest biodiversity, and implementing the best practices for hazardous trees. Housatonic Meadows Preservation Action and the Cornwall Conservation Commission endorsed efforts to repair the damage done by the State Parks Department at Housatonic Meadows State Park. The goals include the creation of a hazard tree policy with DEEP and to replant an educational and ecological garden in the area where many heritage trees were removed. Objective number 3 was protecting our water bodies. And this brings in the Cream Hill Lake Task Force, which you had mentioned, Anna. They tested the waters during 21 and 22. And they tested for water clarity, dissolved oxygen, temperature, and nutrients. Samples were analyzed by the University of Connecticut Center for Environment and Engineering. The results of this test will be forthcoming, and we're going to be holding I guess it's going to be an event about water testing in July of this year if all things go well. And we're going to be showing the public how we do it and what the results for Cream Hill are. That should be pretty interesting. Also, the Housatonic Railway Company, right-of-way herbicide application. The Housatonic Railway Company is called HRRC. Conservation Commission members are working in collaboration with representatives from 6 other Northwest towns to develop recommended no spray zones in areas close to well water and or running through state or federally identified critical habitats. Also to encourage the Housatonic Railroad Company to use best practices in applying herbicides. The identified and recommended no spray zones will be shared with town Board of Selectmen, this is all 6 towns, with the objective of gaining their support of this work. Number 4 is to promote sustainability efforts. Katie will talk in greater depth about this. The Conservation Commission has continued its efforts with the state's Sustainable CT program. The commission has played a leading role in encouraging the state to better tailor its programs to Connecticut's smaller towns so they can more effectively participate in a sustainable program. In response, the state has reached out with interns and staffing to address those issues. Katie will talk also about trying to attain the silver level. We already got the bronze. The original strategies for energy conservation administered by the Energy Task Force are still relevant, as many of the program strategies are. Also coming up is addressing concerns for waste in the form of composting. In conjunction with the Cornwall Garden Club, the Conservation Commission is developing an educational module on composting that will be presented on Earth Day, April 22nd at the Cornwall Library. The Commission is also exploring avenues for a collective composting effort. The two-pronged effort is part of an overall objective to reduce solid waste by reducing compostable materials in the waste stream through home composting, as well as municipal programs. And the last objective is to protect Cornwall's horizon lines and ridge lines and limit noise and light pollution. The Conservation Commission engaged in the mapping services of Housatonic Valley Association to create ridgeline conservation area maps. These maps were displayed during a formal presentation to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Daryl Chernisky of Kent attended the presentation to share his experience gained in the 15 years since Kent adopted Ridgeline Protection Overlay Zone. If adopted, these zones would contribute to the POCD goals of ridgeline protection and limiting light pollution. And that's it. Thanks for your attention.
It's
Turn it back over to you,
amazing
Anna.
how in just 5 minutes you can outline such a huge body of work. Congratulations.
Thank you, Anna.
I'm just stunned. All right. Finally, Katie, and last but not least, we're going to hear from Katie about Sustainable Connecticut.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Anna. This is a really terrific event annually to hear what everybody's doing and how they're all interrelated too. Sustainable CT is a state program that outlines sustainability actions that build local economies, support equity, and respect the finite capacity of the environment, offering case studies, technical assistance, and funding to help advance sustainability initiatives. The actions cover 12 sectors such as equity, economy, land and natural resources, creative culture, planning, transportation, energy, communication and education, material and waste management, housing, and more. Outside of the designated certifications, Cornwall uses this program as a model of best practices to glean ideas, possibly get funding, and to model ideas for other towns. Our POCD and SCT goals overlap in 14 actions, which I have submitted previously. Action details can be read at the sustainableCT.org website. Currently, we're focusing on these actions, working with the EDC to promote roundtables and business development and the arts. We had a presentation last week. Promote composting and add the component to the transfer station. revitalize an energy efficiency plan at CCS, and review the social services component with Heather Deneen. Projects that have been completed and will be submitted to SCT is an air quality monitoring report, the housing and land trust panel that we had, LID education projects, invasive species education projects, the Greenway project, that's the biking project, and the Cream Hill Lake monitoring program. Projects on the horizon are working with equity, wastewater treatment, discussion of a food hub, installation of EV stations, inventorying town vehicles, working with the CCS cultural calendar, working on the CCC natural resource inventory, working on a sustainable purchasing policy, and some brownfield redevelopment. In our POCD, we have a call to enhance communication and collaboration between existing town groups, as well as to promote sustainability efforts. I recommend the town act on these goals and install a staff member to enact communication coordination and future coordination with sustainable CT. The savings from our energy modifications can certainly fund that position. So that's respectfully submitted. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Katie. And we're going to hold your feet to the fire a year from now to see how many of those goals you've accomplished.
They're ongoing.
I think I've lost my quorum. No, well, yes, I have. I will mention that Heather Deneen submitted a written report. We'll be posting that on the website along with the minutes. I want to thank everyone for coming. I'm very pleased that we kept it to an hour. The very first time I attended an annual town planning meeting, it was on a Saturday and it lasted 4 hours and I thought I would die. Oh, I've had this goal for a long time. Meetings should be an hour ideally.
You go, girl.
So, James, are you still there? Or Bruce, could you move to end our meeting? Well, yeah, okay.
Moved.
Okay, Bruce moved, James seconded. We're all in favor. Good night, all.
Thank you.
All right.
Oh, wow, that's short.
Great job, Anna.
Thank you.